Boxing Ego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. 1. What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. You'll do none. You'll do fucking none. Now, Bob Arum recently spoke with Bloody Elbow and he has some things to say regarding the colossal fight in the making, possibly, between Floyd Mayweather coming out of retirement just for Conor McGregor. I want to talk about what he said and just give my thoughts on the situation. Now, the fight is not finished or finalized, but Bob Arum had some very interesting things to say. Top-ranked promoter, been in the business since the Muhammad Ali days. This is what he said to Bloody Elbow. I think the only impediment there is the UFC, because the UFC doesn't treat fighters the same way that boxing promoters do. In other words, UFC fighters get so much less than boxers do. They proposed a deal to Conor McGregor that on his share of the purse, they take 50%. Now give me a break, right? Bob Arum goes on to say, if that fight doesn't happen, referring to Mayweather versus McGregor, the blame will only be on the UFC. Now, Bob Arum, he sometimes says radical things or whatnot, but I tend to believe him in this situation because if you know just combat sports and just any kind of Hollywood, those types of industries, it's not that big. It's not as big as you think if you're connected in the right circles, and I'm sure he gets a lot of information. I mean, Freddie Roach being a person that works with Pacquiao, a longtime top-ranked fighter. Freddie Roach has actually trained guys, Anderson Silva's and BJ Penn and GSP. He's trained them. So, I mean, those circles are small, and especially when you're on a Bob Arum level, you know what I mean, multi-millionaire, businessman, you work with other tycoons and speak with other bosses and stuff. So he might have some intel regarding the situation. And another reason I believe this is because this is what I've been telling you guys for the longest time. I said if the fight doesn't get made, I have the videos up, and I said if the fight between Mayweather and McGregor doesn't get made, it will be because of Dana White and the UFC. And now you have Bob Arum corroborating everything that I've been saying. Now, let me reiterate in case you missed some of those past videos. The reason I believe Dana White, if the fight did not happen, would be an obstacle or a roadblock, would be because you got to look at it. Floyd Mayweather, he went to the Olympics as a pro, undefeated for like 19 years. He's done more. He's proven more. There's a lot of... See, this is the thing. I really like Conor McGregor. You'll do fuck... I just like his swag, his personality, pause. And he seems... You know what I mean? He seems a cool dude. He's a good UFC fighter, right? But some of his fans are not realistic. And they got mad when I made the video and stuff. No, yeah. McGregor will smash Mayweather in boxing and all this and that. But listen, you got to be realistic. Majority of the boxing world, aside from the circus, and everybody knows this fight will do money just because they're both talkers, right? And they've already built up the fight in TMZ interviews and back and forth chat and stuff like that. The fight will sell. But most boxing insiders, Freddie Roach or Errol Spence Jr., they're not giving McGregor much of a shot. He knows that because he walked out Michael Connellan, his countryman, who's also Irish and just turned pro in New York. I was out there in New York that particular week covering the Golovkin-Jacobs fight. It was crazy out in New York, St. Patty's Day week, and it was just a lot of people, high Irish population out there in New York, and it was lit. It was nuts. But he even said that. He's like, the boxing world doesn't know I'm going to take them by storm, and all you writers and media guys who not giving me a chance, I got power in both hands, confident as a motherfucker. He said he's confident and he's going to knock Floyd out or something like that. He's going to knock Floyd out and shake up this whole game, and they don't know what's coming. So he acknowledged, that's him acknowledging the fact that he's read the articles, seen interviews and stuff, that people aren't giving him a shot because he's not the standard boxer. He doesn't have the pure boxing only background. And many people believe to beat an elite boxer in boxing, you would probably want to have years, if not decades, of boxing experience, especially a masterclass boxer like Floyd Mayweather, right? So the reason why I pinned the tail on the donkey with Dana White in the UFC is because you have to look at it. Conor McGregor acknowledges that he's the underdog and nobody's giving him a shot. Dana White knows the Mayweather family personally, even before he blew up and got big with the UFC, right? He has gym stories of them. So he knows how good Floyd is, despite anything else that he says publicly now. He knows them. And I don't think he's dumb in the sense of, I mean, there's people who pick sides and stuff and ride with their buddy or somebody they represent. But in the end of the day, a lot of these guys are smart and they're just gonna ride, you know what I mean, like some gangbanging shit. You're just gonna ride with who you want to ride with, but in the back of your mind, you know it's an uphill battle for Conor McGregor in boxing. And again, Floyd has proven more. He has more money. He's his own boss, so he's clearly the A side. Like Floyd said, he was on First Take or whatever. He said, "I want to fight Conor McGregor. On my end, it's cool. I dictate my career. I'm my own boss. Nobody tells me what to do." He has someone he has to answer to. Dana White used to be my bag boy. He was saying things like that, and that's absolute. These are all facts. That's not a punchline. These are actual facts, right? And we know that Conor McGregor is signed with the UFC. He has to get approval, and he has to get, like, even like the guys like John Jones, when they fight, he's suspended now because of the drug test. But when they do those little tournaments and stuff in other countries, they got to get clearance to do stuff like that because that's just how it goes. They're signed with the UFC, and that's just what it is. So if anybody who's realistic, you'll know that Conor McGregor in boxing is a massive underdog, and Floyd calls the shots because he's the one that's done more. He's undefeated in his respective sport, unlike Conor McGregor, who has losses or has a loss in the UFC, and then he has losses just in MMA before he came over to the UFC. I believe all by submission. And Dana White is no fool. He knows this. He knows this is an uphill battle. If it was a street fight, if it was no holds bars, or, you know what I mean, they just fought each other at a bar or something, then he would probably be more confident in Conor McGregor's ability. But he knows Conor McGregor. I'm sure he's seen the sparring with Chris Van Heerding, and knowing Mayweather and following his career and stuff like that, you have no choice but to know that if guys like who have boxed their whole life, like Manny Pacquiao, the Maidanas, and Canelo's been a pro since he's 15, Oscar De La Hoya, an Olympic gold medalist, if guys like that in boxing could not beat him, power or no power, size advantage or no size advantage, speed, better footwork, then you have to admit Conor McGregor is going to be a super uphill battle unless Floyd gets old overnight and looks shitty or his punch tolerance goes down dramatically. Even though Conor McGregor is a good fighter and he has power, right? It's different because UFC uses smaller gloves. He's going to have bigger gloves. He's going to have to be able to get out of the way of punches different. A lot of those UFC guys, and I don't mind UFC. I watch it and I do my post fights on UFC. Obviously, boxing is my number one go-to. But, I mean, I respect people that glove up. You know what I mean? And bottom line is UFC, I don't see people that are uber talented with boxing in the UFC. Some people are better, like Cody Garbrandt. He's better than like the average UFC fighter with his stand-up. But again, not all this would translate well into boxing. You have different minute rounds and just everything's different. You have more ways to beat an opponent in the UFC. So if that is stripped away from Conor McGregor, then it's going to be an uphill battle. And Dana White realizes that. That's what Bob Arum is talking about. Because if this fight doesn't happen, how are you going to blame Mayweather, who is the A side? We know he's the A side, and he's his own boss. Like, there's no one telling him what he can or can't do. And if the UFC is trying to take 50%, that's crazy. That's half. That, like, what did Eddie Murphy say? Half! Johnny Carson, half. That's crazy to me. Half. So if you look at it, if you really, and I mean, all these are big numbers to the everyday Joe, but Conor McGregor is the one risking getting embarrassed, risking getting knocked out, risking looking crazy, I mean, when you take a loss, all the people that ride with you aren't necessarily going to be there. Look at Ronda Rousey. Look at Conor when he lost to Nate Diaz. I mean, he even said, Conor McGregor, he's like, look at all the motherfuckers out of the woodwork. People came out of the woodwork just to, like, especially with this internet shit, this new internet age, people come out of the woodwork to clown you, or ha ha, Ronda Rousey, a million memes because she got knocked out. You know what I mean? The internet is cruel and unforgiving. So he's the one taking all the risks, and he's the one that's getting punched in the face. So to see the UFC take half, that's crazy to me. That means if, let's say he got $100 million, that means he has to give $50 million to the UFC. That's half. Not to mention paying his training camp, like his sparring partners, his trainer, taxes and stuff like that. That's nuts, especially when he's the one taking the damage. So if that is true, what Bob Arum is saying, the UFC is raping him, and we know the UFC fighters don't get paid the same as boxing fighters, and I think that's why Conor McGregor is trying to make the fight, because he knows he can make more money with Floyd Mayweather than fighting anybody. You can't fight Frankie Edgar, even good fights like Jose Aldo rematch or whoever, right? Nate Diaz trilogy, you're still not going to make the same type of money as a Mayweather, just because it's a circus fight. Mayweather's a known name, stuff like that, and he's undefeated. It's just a more bankable fight. But I've been saying this for the longest. If the fight doesn't happen, it's because of Dana White. You got to really analyze the business and analyze the game. Dana White is Conor McGregor's boss, basically. He's the one that's promoting the fights. Him and his team and Matchmaker make the fights, and etc. Right? And I've always learned the acronym WIFM, what's in it for me. So if you look at it from a UFC perspective, they have everything to lose and less to gain. Obviously, if Conor McGregor does the unthinkable and like knocks out Floyd, then they gain a lot because their star comes back with the trophy. But most people don't believe that's going to be the case in a boxing ring. So the risk is very high for the UFC, because if they're Conor McGregor, they're number one. Ronda Rousey already been stopped twice back to back. So the UFC has kind of had a slower year. Yet last year was popping for the UFC, but this year's been kind of slow. You know what I mean? There's some good fights. Daniel Cormier, Rumble Johnson. I'm looking forward to that rematch. But other fights like Tyron Woodley and Wonderboy Thompson, that fight, it didn't kind of live up to the first fight. The best action was in the very last round, and other than that, both guys were like real tentative and showing so much respect. So the UFC hasn't really had a huge card yet. You know what I mean? Nate Diaz is cussing out Dana White and stuff online. So they haven't had a huge fight. So their number one earner and number one cash cow, if he goes in there with Floyd Mayweather, who's known for dominating and embarrassing people, making them look childish and amateurish, if he does that to Conor McGregor, then it doesn't really benefit him. The only thing that would benefit the UFC is if Conor McGregor somehow wins, and most people aren't forecasting that. So that is why I agree with Bob Arum and think if the UFC is like, okay, you want to fight this motherfucker outside of your normal discipline, your normal sport, we're going to tax that ass. We're going to tax you. Half! I want half your shit. Let me know what you guys think of what Bob Arum is saying. The fight could still happen because, I mean, even if it's true, 100 million and you get 50 million, you're not going to make. Conor McGregor. There's literally nobody in the UFC that he can fight that he's going to get $50 million even. You know what I mean? It's just not. There's nobody there. And if you guys can think of somebody, please drop it in the comment section so I can laugh at your dumb ass, because there is nobody. But if you think you know somebody, drop that in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. Bob Arum is blaming Top Ranks. Bob Arum is blaming Dana White and the UFC if the fight doesn't happen, and I concur, and I definitely agree with him. Drop that in the comment section. Make sure you share the video, like the video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.